Welcome to another Cup O Joe with a guest this morning or this afternoon, depending on when you're watching. And my guest today is Sam McCrimmon from Lemoyne College. Welcome, Sam. Thank you for doing this.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Yeah, Sam has been a wonderful client of ours for many years. And we recently had some great conversations over the phone. I said, let's get this on video. Let's get this in a Cup of Joe because you have some great ideas. You've been fundraising for a long time in some big shops and in higher ed and healthcare. And so we always like to start with a tip of the cup. Welcome to the Cup of Joe. And this video, we're going to focus on a great simple, everybody knows I love simple. That's what I find as I get older. The simpler it is, the more likely we are to take action with it and to use it. And so it's don't be afraid to tell donors that you are a fundraiser. Right, Sam?
Right, Joe. So I would start out by asking you, what do you tell people when you first reach out to them? Email or phone or even in person sometimes, right?
Yeah, well, I do half of my work right now is contract work, serving as director of major gifts or planned giving for a couple charities. So I do a lot. Most of the calls I make for clients are calls or loyal donors that are unassigned. Nobody's paying attention to them. So what I say to the client is, give me those people and I'll pick up the phone, start calling and qualifying and see, can I get them on the phone and what's the reaction? So these are cold calls to loyal donors. There's a relationship there with the organization, but they're not expecting my call and they don't know who I am. So I'm all about the obvious. Let's face it, none of us like getting cold calls to buy something or to donate, right? So I might say that depending on we were talking earlier, depending on what the donor, how they respond right away, I might say, I'm from the fundraising office, probably the last call you want to get today. And then I shut up and pause. They're not expecting it. It's like Tony Robbins, motivational speaker, said, you have to quickly break that emotional state, that typical reaction. So what can I say right away to stop people in the track saying, wow, this guy's different. Okay, he gets it. I have empathy for you, Sam. You're not expecting a fundraising call today. I may not be asking you for a gift, which is typically what I say. Today, unless you want to give one, don't let me make that decision for you. So that I'm very clear with this. Hey, I'm from the fundraising shop. And or I might say, yeah, I'm a fundraiser. Probably the last person you want to hear from today. And I do it just to shock, hopefully in a positive way, to say, okay, this guy's different. I'll give him a couple minutes.
It's interesting, Joe, because I've had different variations of that theme, either on the phone or in person over the course of my career, right? Everything from, I'm sorry, I'm a fundraiser to, on occasion when I've run into people in an awkward public or, even other situations saying something to the equivalent of, what I'd really like to do is find a time when we could meet in a much less awkward place. And I could tell you all about, why I'd like you to support the research or the educational, services that we're providing. And that'll usually get an awkward chuckle at best. And I'll tell you, at worst, I usually know exactly where I stand at the end of that interaction, right? It's a great way to do discovery in about 30 seconds or less. You have a pretty good sense from the person's face whether you're going to be able to move that conversation forward. I'll tell you the other thing that I've started doing is I get very much to the point on introductory emails. And the reason for that is I now assume that any email I write is being read on a smartphone, and it's being read in about 3 seconds. And if they have to scroll, I've lost them, right? So it's one sentence in each case per paragraph, essentially. And it basically says, here's who I am. I'm Sam McCrimmon. I'm from the advancement office. I'd like to meet with you. I'd like to introduce myself, hear about your life and career, and update you on the college. I'd be happy to meet you at a time and location that are convenient from you. Sincerely, Sam McCrimmon. That's it, right? That's the discovery email anymore, because if it goes any longer, they're not going to read the thing, right? And I always make sure that I, of course, have a cell phone number and a couple of other identifying characteristics so they don't think it's spam. What about you for email?
It's definitely about keeping them concise, and I'll add more of what's in it for them. How will they benefit from visiting? I think you might find it helpful if I update you on blah, 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 blah. Other donors, and I often like to use other donors, like people are tribal. So don't take my word for it, because I'm a greedy fundraiser. All I want is your money, right? Which is what some people think.
Yeah.
So don't take my word for it. Other donors are telling me that they have benefited from a conversation around the impact of their gifts, if that's something that's important to you. So I add a little more about them and how they'll benefit. But the point here is, the theme of this is just, don't beat around the bush, right? People are overwhelmed, overscheduled, overworked, under-resourced, too much information. Just get right to the point. One of the things we talked about, which for our college fundraising listeners, watchers, is I liked when you're based in Syracuse, the college, Lemoyne College, based in Syracuse, nicest people you ever want to meet. If you're ever up there, stop on by, right? Stop on by the advancement office. Incredibly nice people. Just don't go in February or January. But
that's true.
When you travel across the country, we've talked about the fact, especially maybe older people that are maybe widowed, that want company. And can you talk a little bit about the fact that I am a fundraiser, and it's not just a social call, and that balance of, we don't want to be too transactional. Where's your checkbook? But at the same time, we don't want to be there for 3 hours and then they're like, oh, wait a minute, this isn't about fundraising, is it?
So it's funny you mentioned that, because the further I get in this career, Joe, the observationally, one of the big challenges that I think a lot of us face as we transition into a major gifts or other sort of role over time is this notion that we go from trying to form a relationship to trying to make that relationship part of the scheme of what we're trying to do in terms of actually raising funds, right? And we have to make sometimes those tough decisions to say, okay, this is a viable major gift relationship, or in some cases, this is a wonderful person and they're a great person who's passionate about college, but they're not going to be able to make that kind of commitment to the college for whatever reason. It could be financial, it could be emotional, it could be other sorts of things. And so part of what I've learned to do when I'm on the road in particular is to make clear why I'm there, right? And I find that often helps earlier on to differentiate those people, right? So the way I've been doing it most recently is to say to people, listen, you're probably wondering why I'm out here, right? Particularly if I'm on the West Coast or the South or somewhere like that, right? Why would this little old Jesuit college from Syracuse, New York, send me out to meet with you? The answer is, part of it is that I'm going to be looking for a philanthropic contribution from you. And then I'll say, it would be awfully strange if you stop and think about it, if the college spent the money that they're spending right now to send me out just to be your friend. You would think that's a gigantic waste of the college's resources that would better be spent on our 30% Pell Grant eligible student body. And almost to a T, the alums will look and say, you're right. That makes an awful lot of sense why you're out here. Right? Because it would be absurd, right? Why would you pay for me to go out and visit you just to say hello? That seems a little silly.
Yeah. So again, you're just being upfront with people. There's nothing wrong with that. And as you said earlier, or alluded to, you're qualifying people.
Yeah. Yeah.
You always have to be ABQ, always be qualifying. And how do they react to that?
And by and large, people will react positively, or in a couple of cases, I've had people say, towards the end of the visit, listen, I'm really grateful for your time and thanks for coming out. I'm just not in a position where I can make that kind of commitment right now. And my response is, I absolutely understand that. And thanks for your time. Or, there's plenty of other ways to get them involved, right? It might be, well, if we can't think about a gift right now, can we connect you with our career advising office? Maybe there are internship opportunities. Classic engagement model, right? Where can we engage you on campus so that perhaps there's that opportunity down the road? Or can we reconnect you with old alumni that you might know, right? All those opportunities are there. It just means that you're not going to spend a lot of time with me. That's all.
And as I always like to say, the worst case scenario is that someone has been thanked personally that may have not been thanked personally ever or for a long time. And we can't undervalue that.
It's true. You know,
the conversation. Sorry.
No, and I'll give you one other scenario, right? I had a lovely conversation with a gentleman in the Midwest. This was about 3 years ago, right? And he seemed like he was a promising prospect. So we sat down to coffee, and it became clear over the course of about 45 minutes that, and again, we're a Catholic school, right? And you work for, you know, several organizations, some of whom are affiliated religiously. It became clear that his version of Catholicism and college's version of Catholicism had diverged over the course of time. And so we ended the conversation with a very, very cordial and friendly understanding that his version and the college's version weren't likely to converge anytime in the near future. And so we very amicably parted and went separate ways, right? And that was an incredibly valuable piece of feedback. We now no longer have to worry about visiting him as a prospect. And he, you know, in the meantime, understands that we're not going to change our tune on some pretty important topics to him.
I do get that a fair amount with the Salesian missions who I work with. But oftentimes they'll say, I'm going to keep giving to you, but anytime religion or politics is involved, there's a lot of strong opinions and not too much we can do about it, but to listen empathetically like you did. So good stuff. You're going to come back and doing some other videos with us. How can people get in touch with you, Sam, if they have questions or want you to elaborate? You didn't know I was going to touch on this one, huh?
Always happy to talk further about development and fundraising, you know, and certainly these sort of topics, my favorite thing to do. In fact, they can email me. It's mccrimsi@lemoyne.edu. You can find me on LinkedIn and connect with me there, or through you or through my email. You can find my cell phone number, which I would put out there broadly, but I get enough calls from all over the world these days. So
absolutely. Well, thanks for doing this. Everyone, thank you for listening in. As always, I am Joe Tumolo, CEO of Major in Plan Giving Development. And a big shout out to our sponsor, ThankView, who helps us to develop, produce, and deliver these videos. Very affordable, personal way to send greetings to your donors. If we can help you with your Major Plan Giving program, please drop us a line, Joe at MPG Development. That's Joe at mpgdevelopment.com. All the best.